Time to carry on with our RCA Globetrotter project.
World News Today, brought to you by Continental Radio and Television Corporation, makers of Admiral Radio, America's smart set. By shortwave broadcast direct from world capitals as well as the leading news centers of our own country.
Good day, and welcome back to Mike's Radio Repair and Restoration. Today we're going to continue on with part 2 of our restoration of the RCA Globetrotter A25 radio. But just before we get into that, I'd like to issue a special thanks to Chris and Andrew, who have generously donated to our channel. That greatly helps out with our costs. Capacitors and things aren't very costly. They're not too bad, but when you start getting into buying lots of tubes, and I'm sure everybody's feeling the cost of shipping is crazy nowadays, and of course digging up old radios and haggling good deals for them. So all of these people who are chipping in for support, really greatly appreciate it, more than you could possibly know. So with that, we'll carry on here with our project. While you weren't looking, I snuck in and I cleaned the top of the chassis. It didn't take much, and I'm not big for polishing the top of these chassis so they look like they just come out showroom with a chrome finish or using extremely corrosive chemicals. I clean them up so they look nice and presentable. And the reason that is, I have mentioned before, is the tube sockets are held down with little rivets, and sometimes the chemical used to get those chassis really sparkling clean are from mildly to quite corrosive. And the tubes often rely on grounds that are obtained through those rivets. So I tend to stay gentle with my cleaning so that they look acceptable and presentable, makes it look like somebody loves them. So let's just take a quick look. So here's a quick look at the top of the chassis after it got cleaned up. Doesn't look too bad, not perfect. It's a lot better than it was. I'll see if I can scooch a picture of how it was when it first came out of the case for comparison. I have serviced the capacitor, which I've used straight, pure deoxit on the contacts that are on each stage of the capacitor. And of course, I've cleaned up the contacts in the band switch, and I have sprayed the tone and the volume controls. Those things are done. So when we left off in the last video, we had done the initial inspection, which was step 1. Step 2 was what we call power supply and audio tube, where we replace all of the electrolytic capacitors in both the power supply and around the base of the audio tube. And we check the resistors and capacitors in those areas, being the old roly-poly wax paper guys. So I think off to the side of the video here, you can see some of the detritus that has come out of the radio. So we got step 1 completed, we got step 2 completed, and we were into step 3 where we were doing capacitors, again, the wax papers. So I think there's only one left of those to do, and then we're going to go through the resistors, and once we get that done, then it's time to put some power to this puppy and see where we go. So let's flip it around and see what's left to do. Okay, so like I said, there's only one more capacitor to go, which is this guy here. It should be very easy to change. And there's a bunch of resistors I'm going to go through, which is step 4. So step 3 is replacing all of the wax paper capacitors that are left over after step 2. And if you're wondering what these steps are, or you don't know, I've got another video in my channel called Restoring Tube Radio Step by Step. And it goes through those steps and trains you how to start, how to do the initial inspection, make sure the plate transformer is okay, check voltages, and you move on step by step by step in order to get a successful result. So we're working those steps now. So we're just going to finish up the capacitor step 3 test, step 3 function, and step 4 is going to be making sure that all the resistors are okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, Well, with the last capacitor changed, that's step 3 completed. Step 4 has also been completed. I've been through all the resistors, and very happily I can report I only had to change 2. Most of them were within a reasonable range. But now is a good time to discuss an item here. Now, if you remember from the first part, we discovered that there was a sheet of friable asbestos in the bottom of the case. I have treated it with urethane. Basically, I've taken urethane and I've thinned it a little, and I then brushed it on and allowed it to soak into the mat until the mat was completely saturated with urethane. That urethane has dried, and now the fibers can no longer escape from the mat, which makes it much more safer. I could have replaced it with a piece of tar paper, but that's not great. It's better, but it's not great. And some people say, well, why didn't you just put a piece of sheet metal down? Unfortunately, with this radio, you can't. All of these coils are open and exposed, and many of them are set tunes with silver mica capacitors. If you put a steel plate across the bottom of this, you're going to throw it out of tune. So your options are limited. I didn't want to go bare wood. So it was working good with the piece of asbestos in it. We've made it safe. We'll continue on that way. But I mean, you can see that all of these coils here are wide open, part of the oscillator and the antenna coils and things like that. And if you cover it with a piece of sheet steel, you're just going to ask for trouble. So that trouble I'm not going to request. So I think next we're going to go through some tubes and install some tubes and put the thing together again. But actually, let's talk about the speaker first. Let me just set up with the speaker. Okay, here's the speaker I've taken out of the unit. It is the type that has the field coil as part of the power supply. Electrodynamic, I think is what they call it. I never remember the name. Basically, everybody's familiar with a modern permanent magnet speaker where the audio that's induced into the voice coil, or the signal that's induced into the voice coil, pushes against that magnet to cause the voice coil to move. In this case, we have an electric coil that's wrapped around the center pin, and this is actually part of the power supply. So it gives the speaker its magnet, if you will, but it also provides filtering for the power supply. It's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's a good idea, but in a lot of them, they're very sensitive. They burn out, and it requires a lot of modification to change the set over to a standard output type transformer and a permanent magnet type speaker. But this speaker had lots of little tiny splits in it, and I prefer to use an alphatic resin to repair them. I don't like using rubber cement because it doesn't stick very well. It's heavy. The last thing you want to do is cause, like, let's say you've got some errors on one side here and you put rubber cement on this area. The rubber cement tends to really contract when it dries. And of course, the additional extra heavy weight of the rubber cement. I've seen speakers be pulled off center to where the voice coil will touch the center pole and the speaker will begin to rattle. So again, I use an alphatic resin. A carpenter's wood glue is basically what it is, and I just put a little bit on a piece of paper and dab it on the split. And when it dries, it's very light. It's a very good bond. It lasts for a very good time. It's still reasonably flexible in those areas. I've always had good luck with it, so I'm going to continue to use this and stick with it. As you can see, this speaker's had a lot of little tears in it, but it's repaired now. So that's what we'll put back in the case like that. So we can start to assemble the chassis, check tubes and whatnot, and let's see if we've got a radio or not. Okay, just going through all the tubes here, and there's some stuff to discuss. Let's discuss first the audio tube. Whoever dealt with this radio prior to me put a 6V6, 6 Victor 6 audio tube in rather than a 6F6. Now they're pin interchangeable, but the 6V6 in simplistic terms has a lot more gain than the 6F6. And that can be hard on the audio output transformer. So I have gone through my pile of tubes and I found a 6F6. We're going to put the original tube back in it. And I just see that we've got a heater going here. So let's give it a test and see how it does. Oh geez, I'm reading over 80. So that's plenty good. Let's just adjust the line voltage here a little bit. Yeah, we're reading up over 80. So a little bit of terrible connection in that tube socket. I got to replace that in the tester. But yeah, it's reading 80. So there's other things to discuss here with the tubes. They substituted the Magic Eye tube here with a 6E5, I believe. Let me just check the number. Yep, 6 Echo 5. And again, it's a what's supposed to be there is a 6U5. Now again, the pinouts are the same and you can swap them and they'll work, but the 6 Echo 5 will close up faster because again, it has more gain than the original 6U5. So I'm going to have a dig about and see if I can find an original 6U5 because you get a better tuning feel when you look at them. That's where the 6Es close up on a strong signal really quickly. The 6U is a little bit more pokey and a little bit slower to close, and it's really better for tuning. So that's an issue there. Another couple of issues that I'm going to let stand for now until I get my testing done are these two tubes, kind of sort of in the IF, and really, they really should be these old metal can guys. So I'm going to let them ride for now. Maybe I'll find some decent ones, but let's get the radio up and working first. So this is just me being fussy, but we've got the right audio tube now, and I'm really curious to hear the radio go because when I heard it demonstrated to me when I bought the radio, I noticed that there was a little bit of a crackle in the audio. And it sounded a little bit like the voice coil was touching the center rod, the center pole of the speaker, and that's never a good thing. You know, I can't detect that when I was doing a repair on the speaker. It seems to move smoothly without anything touching. Great news! We've reached a milestone with YouTube that allows our subscribers to offer us a great big thanks in the way of a tip. The funds collected from your generous tips will be used to buy more old radios and parts to generate more great content. On a PC, if you click on the three dots in the bottom right corner, you can choose Thanks from the menu and choose your tip amount. If you're on a mobile device, again, you can see Thanks in the lower right-hand corner. Your consideration and support of our channel is certainly greatly appreciated. I thank all of you that have turned this so quickly into a great community. Okay, we got all the tubes back in it. I've just put the pre-selector on top here because some of the audio wires run through it. It's got a phono input on the back, and of course the input to the audio tube runs through it, so I have to have it connected. I don't feel like jumpering it. I've got the antenna connected on the side here. The speaker's connected over here. Our variac is on, so we'll get ready to turn it on and see what we get. The lights came on. That's a good sign. We're starting on, I think, the broadcast band. So this is no alignment. Oh, we got noise. Ooh, radio.
About your receding hairline. This year, in January, a Texas Department of Public Safety helicopter patrolling the state's border with Mexico lost power. Brown before that, and Downchild Blues Band, Zoomer Radio, Saturday Night Bandstand. I'm Lily Frost, and this is Martha and the Muffins. Black Station. I walked into my first league meeting.
He was stepping at 6, so he didn't show up till like 5:30. I was a good officer. I showed up early. Trump, I'm out. I doubt that one. The InventHelp data bank includes thousands of
So I think it's safe to assume the broadcast band works. So let's go to the next one. I don't know what the frequencies are. I don't remember. So we've gone up a band.
You talk about weaponization, persecuted by.
materials that will come afterward. The blessing of my Father in
Whatever that band is, it works. We'll go to the next one. I don't know if you can see how fast the eye closes up. Not great, but it works, I guess.
because we realize
If you can see the tuning eye, just closes up so fast on the strong signal. Let's go up to the last band. I think that's the last band. No, there's two more. I don't know if there'll be anything on the last band. It's later in the evening. Higher frequencies tend to be something there. Well, it's live, there's stuff there, but that's a band we'd try in the daytime. There it is, working. Good. So, it seems pretty sensitive. I think the next step forward is for me to do the 455 kilohertz alignment. And we can put it back in the case and peak up the bands and whatnot, and pretty much call it done. So far, so good. Okay, so here we are all set up for our 455 kilohertz alignment. I am pumping in a 455 kilohertz signal at the beginning of the IF string. I have our trusty Simpsons meter clipped onto the speaker to audio output. So when I turn this up, it's been running for a while. You should always let them run for 30 minutes, an hour. I like to let them sit for an hour, let everything warm up and stabilize and whatnot. So you should be able to hear that tone and see the meter rise. So we're going to tune each of the IF transformers for a peak. Get on the arm. That's the wrong way. Wow. I had a feeling just listening to it that the IF was way out. That was a big gain, so that's a big step up in sensitivity. Let's try this guy now. Oh yeah. Turn it down over here. I'm going to go back and do that process again. There we are there now. That's the IF is aligned now. I'm not going to do the rest of the alignment until it's back in its case, which is really the next chore, is to put it back in its case. It seems to be doing pretty good. So we'll get it in the wood and touch up the other alignment points and enjoy an old radio. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, just a quick peek inside the cabinet here before I start putting things together. It's been all cleaned up. This is the asbestos pad that we had a concern about. As you can see, it's now inert, registered safe with the application of urethane. So if you come up against asbestos in your rebuilds, you've got to check your area codes as to how you're supposed to deal with it. Every area's got different codes for dealing with asbestos. And safety gear, critical, respirator, eye protection. I've chosen to do this, as I know in my area, applying a coating like this to asbestos that can't be reasonably removed is an acceptable path forward. So that's what I've done, and I'm sure it'll be fine. And I've cleaned up the rest of it here now, so we'll start piecing it together. Okay, the pre-selector is in, the speaker's in, and I've just kind of stopped here to have a fireside chat with everybody. This speaker is rattly. When you turn up the tone to get a little bit more bass note, the voice coil rattles. It's done. It works, but it needs to be changed. And I don't know about you all, but a rattly speaker just drives me around the bend. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just one of my pet peeves. Who knows? I mean, I could send it out to be reconed, which is an expense, and to be reconed with a new voice coil is probably even a really much bigger expense. So I don't think that option's really on the table. So I think replacing the speaker and converting it to a permanent magnet ordeal kind of sort of is the road I'm pointing down. I sure would love to hear your comments on this. And my ideology is of course the field coil on the back of the speaker on these electrostatic things provides the magnetism for the speaker. And it's also part of the power supply, and it's also part of the power supply filtering. Some guys will just replace it with a resistor. This one is a 1300 ohm coil, and they'll put in something close, a 12 or a 1500 ohm resistor in across the two capacitors, and they'll call it a day. They'll throw in another audio output transformer and a standard permanent magnet speaker. Other fellows, I'm tending to lean this way, but again, it's a lot of money to be spending on this type of radio, is I will get a Hammond choke and put a Hammond choke in that's close to 1300 ohms. I'm thinking something around at least 70 or 80 milliamps worth of current tolerance through that choke, and a resistor to balance out the rest, to balance out the voltage, and then put a new a better audio output transformer to a nice 6-inch speaker. So there's lots of different ways we can go. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts and impressions or your experiences with this. But I'm not in a place where I can send this away to have it reconed, or reconing is not so bad, but the voice coil being rattly the way it is a whole other matter. So again, I really don't think that option's on the table, and I think replacement is probably the order of the day. Some other guys will take the inductor right off the back of the speaker and mount it somewhere on the chassis, and then we'll continue to use this as part of the power supply and go ahead and put it in another, or maybe even use the original output transformer, although I'm not sure what the ohmage output is on that or what the ohms rating is on the voice coil. I don't know. With buying a new 6-inch speaker, I know it's probably going to be 8 ohms, and I know it's probably going to need an 8 ohm output audio transformer, so I'm thinking it's going to get changed to do the job properly. But again, love to hear your thoughts. Speak up. Well, here we are, all back in the case. Cleaner, functioning better, I'm sure. Boy, that was quite a gain on the IF alignment. The other alignment adjustments are easy to get to. There's a couple other little plunge capacitors around that I can get to. I'm not going to do final alignment until I get the speaker issue dealt with, because I'll probably be dragging the chassis in and out of the thing again. So that'll do nothing but disturb that sensitive alignment. So so yeah, I'm not going to do final alignment until that's done. I replaced some of the wiring on this wonderful magic loop antenna here. But let's turn it around and turn it on and see what we can find. So something else I've noticed while you're considering with me what we're going to do about the speaker on this radio, the inductor on the back of the speaker, it runs fairly cool. It's got get a little temperature at running at a line voltage of 115 volts. But when you bring that line voltage up to 120, that inductor runs very, very hot. It doesn't seem like it likes modern line voltage. So I think that's another factor that we need to consider while we're deciding what we're going to do with the speaker. But you can see me probably in the reflection of the glass, and you can see the tuning eye a little bit. We're on 25 meters, which is 11, almost 12 megahertz. There's nothing on the low bands at this time of the day. That rattly voice coil. That just drives me crazy. Okay, let's go up another band. So we're in the 15 megahertz range. Got it here.
ليش في إشي؟ مالكم؟ شو صاير معكم؟ لا بس تعب كثير من الشغل والعالم حوالينا.
Back up there. Let's go right up to the top band.
Serão de ondas até 7 metros de altura.
18.5, 19. Will we get WWV? Yeah, we do. Double tap. FT8, guys. Okay. So the radio works well. It'll probably get better with final alignment, certainly on the antenna coils and whatnot. But we've got the speaker issue to deal with. So I'm going to wrap this series of videos up here, as the restoration is kind of sort of complete except for the speaker. We'll have some discussions amongst us about how we're going to proceed with the speaker issue. And we'll do another series on transferring it up probably to a permanent magnet, or what they call it, a Linko magnet type of a unit. And like I say, we'll do a brand new series on that. And if anybody wants to see the schematic for this, I posted it in our YouTube, or not YouTube, sorry, our Facebook help group. There's a nice copy of the schematic so you can look at how that speaker is wired in. And one other thing that I'll point out now, later on, companies like Hallicrafters took the power for the audio tube off before the inductor in the power supply. And that dropped the current going through that inductor considerably. And this one, they didn't do that. The power for the audio tube goes right through the inductor on the back of that speaker. So that's quite a bit of a draw. So we can maybe make a little bit of a circuit change. If we put another inductor in, we can pull the supply off for the audio output transformer prior to the inductor, maybe add some additional capacitance to filter that line. But that way the line voltage, or the B plus for all the tubes, is reasonably clean and reasonably stable after the inductor. So just food for thought. Again, the schematic can be found on our Facebook help group, which the link is below in the comments. So talk it up. Let's hear what you think about this speaker problem and how you think I should proceed. And I guess we'll wrap this up here. And until the next time, we'll see you again.